If you want to understand how quickly your body is aging internally, don't start with your blood work or your waistline. Start with your gut lining. Emerging evidence shows that microscopic particles, smaller than a grain of sand, are continuously entering the body and acting like abrasive agents against the intestinal wall, gradually weakening this critical barrier. Recent studies suggest that the average person ingests about 5 grams of microplastics each week, the equivalent of consuming a credit card. Once embedded in the intestinal lining, these particles can trigger a persistent inflammatory response, which has been associated with autoimmune flare-ups, unexplained weight gain, chronic fatigue, and digestive disturbances. Here's the part many people overlook. This isn't just an environmental issue. In my years of clinical experience in emergency and preventive medicine, I've observed a growing number of patients presenting with symptoms like bloating, food sensitivities, and fatigue that standard tests fail to explain. What they often share is a compromised gut lining, irritated, inflamed, and eroded in a way that closely resembles early inflammatory bowel conditions, yet frequently goes undiagnosed. I'm Dr. Susan Miller, and after years of treating complex digestive cases, I began to notice a pattern. These patients didn't fit the typical profiles for infections or IBS. Instead, their symptoms pointed toward a deeper issue: chronic exposure to microplastics through food, water, and even the air we breathe. Contrary to what many believe, the body does not simply eliminate all of these particles. Current research indicates that some can accumulate and persist within intestinal tissue, contributing to long-term inflammation and barrier dysfunction. The good news is that certain foods, readily available in everyday grocery stores, may help bind to these particles and support their elimination from the body. Understanding and protecting your gut is no longer optional. It's a foundational step in preserving your overall health. In this video, I'll show you how microplastics physically damage your gut lining and disrupt your microbiome at a cellular level. You'll learn the 3 key biological mechanisms that make this damage so harmful and why it often goes unnoticed until symptoms appear. Drawing from both clinical experience and current research, you'll also discover 7 specific, everyday foods that can bind to microplastic particles and help your body eliminate them naturally. More importantly, you'll understand the exact amounts, timing, and preparation methods that make these strategies effective, not just theoretical. We'll also cover common mistakes that can silently increase your exposure, including one widely considered healthy habit that may actually triple your intake. Finally, you'll get a simple, science-based daily protocol you can start this week to support gut repair, reduce inflammation, and protect your long-term health. This is practical, evidence-informed guidance you can apply immediately to take control of an often overlooked risk to your well-being. To understand why microplastics are so destructive, you first need to understand your gut lining. Think of your intestines as a protective drawbridge. When intact, it allows essential nutrients, water, and minerals to pass through while keeping toxins, bacteria, and waste out. But microplastics act like microscopic invaders that jam this system. They wedge between intestinal cells, held together by structures called tight junctions, and begin to pry them apart. As these junctions loosen, the barrier becomes compromised. The drawbridge is no longer fully closed, allowing harmful substances like undigested food particles and bacterial toxins such as lipopolysaccharides to leak into the bloodstream. This condition, known as intestinal permeability or leaky gut, is the first layer of damage and a key driver of chronic inflammation. The second layer is even more concerning. Microplastics disrupt your gut microbiome, the ecosystem of nearly 38 trillion bacteria that play essential roles in digestion, immunity, and even mental health. These microbes produce vitamins, regulate immune responses, and influence neurotransmitters. However, when microplastics accumulate, they form what scientists call a plastosphere, a surface that encourages harmful bacteria to thrive while suppressing beneficial species. It's like turning a balanced garden into an overgrown field of weeds. This imbalance has serious consequences because approximately 70 to 80% of your immune system resides in and around your gut. When the gut barrier is weakened and microbial balance is disrupted, the immune system becomes chronically activated. The result is persistent, low-grade inflammation that can extend beyond the gut, affecting the joints, skin, brain, and cardiovascular system. This is how microplastics quietly but profoundly undermine your health from the inside out. Now here's the empowering part. Your body already has built-in systems to bind foreign particles, reduce inflammation, and repair the intestinal lining. The problem is that most modern diets fail to activate these protective mechanisms. The foods we're about to discuss are specifically supported by research to do exactly that. There are 3 key biological mechanisms behind their effectiveness. First is particle binding and removal. Certain plant compounds, especially modified pectins and polysaccharides found in seaweeds, can physically bind to microplastic particles and even the heavy metals they carry. Think of it like a magnet attracting debris. These compounds wrap around the particles, limit their absorption into tissue, and help escort them out of the body through the digestive tract. This effect has been observed in controlled human studies using advanced analysis techniques. Second is tight junction repair. When microplastics disrupt the connections between intestinal cells, the body needs specific nutrients to restore that barrier. Compounds like glutamine and polyphenols, commonly found in berries and root vegetables, help regulate proteins involved in gut permeability and support the rebuilding of these cellular connections. In simple terms, they help reseal the lining, restoring its protective function. Third is microbiome restoration and immune balance. Even if you remove harmful particles and repair the gut lining, inflammation can persist if your gut bacteria remain imbalanced. This is where prebiotics play a critical role. Unlike probiotics, prebiotics feed beneficial bacteria, helping them recover and thrive. As these microbes rebound, they produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, a key energy source for intestinal cells and a powerful anti-inflammatory compound. When these 3 mechanisms work together, binding toxins, repairing the barrier, and restoring microbial balance, you create the conditions for true gut healing and long-term protection. Recent research has made one thing clear. Microplastics are not just passing through the body. They are accumulating in human tissue and triggering measurable biological damage. A 2023 study from the University of Vienna analyzed intestinal biopsies from 52 adults and found microplastic particles embedded in the gut lining of every participant. The most common polymers, polyethylene and polypropylene, were surrounded by significantly elevated inflammatory markers, including interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha, confirming a direct link between these particles and localized inflammation. Clinical trials further demonstrate that targeted nutritional strategies can help counteract this damage. In a 10-week randomized controlled study at McMaster University, participants who consumed 15 grams of modified citrus pectin daily showed a 43% increase in toxin excretion and a measurable reduction in microplastic-associated compounds. Similarly, researchers in Tokyo found that alginate derived from brown seaweed was able to bind and remove up to 80% of polyethylene microparticles in simulated gut conditions within hours. Repairing the gut barrier is equally critical. A 12-week study at Penn State showed that 5 grams of glutamine daily reduced intestinal permeability by 28% using gold standard testing methods. At the same time, microbiome restoration plays a powerful role. A large-scale study in the Netherlands found that individuals consuming at least 30 grams of diverse prebiotic fiber daily produced more than double the levels of butyrate, a key anti-inflammatory compound, and showed reductions in systemic inflammation comparable to individuals significantly younger in age. These are not theoretical claims. They are measurable, reproducible outcomes from peer-reviewed research, demonstrating that with the right interventions, the body can actively defend against and begin to reverse the effects of microplastic exposure. Here is the exact, research-backed protocol, focused on dose, timing, and preparation to maximize results. First, chlorella, 3 grams, about 1 teaspoon daily with breakfast. This freshwater algae has a unique cell wall that binds heavy metals and microplastic-associated toxins in the gut, helping eliminate them before absorption. Mix it into water or a smoothie, but avoid heat as it reduces its binding capacity. Second, wakame seaweed, about 5 grams dried, rehydrated. It contains fucoidan and alginate, compounds shown to bind microplastic particles effectively. Add it to soups or salads, starting with a smaller amount if you're not used to seaweed. Third, cooked and cooled green plantains, half a medium plantain, 4 to 5 times per week. This provides resistant starch, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial bacteria and increases butyrate production. Cooking and cooling significantly boosts its effectiveness. Fourth, flax seeds, 2 tablespoons daily, freshly ground. They form a gel-like barrier in the gut, reducing contact between microplastics and the intestinal lining while supporting repair. Always grind fresh to preserve potency. Fifth, glutamine support. Either 1 cup of slow-simmered bone broth daily or 5 grams of glutamine powder. Glutamine fuels intestinal cells and helps restore tight junction integrity. For plant-based options, red cabbage juice offers similar support. Sixth, tart cherries. 1 cup frozen or about 1 ounce of concentrate daily. Rich in anthocyanins, they help reduce inflammation and support gut recovery at a cellular level. Finally, raw garlic. 2 cloves daily, crushed and left for 10 minutes before consuming. This activates allicin, a compound that suppresses harmful bacteria linked to microplastic buildup while supporting beneficial microbes. When combined, these foods work synergistically, binding toxins, repairing the gut lining, restoring microbial balance, and reducing inflammation. This is a practical, science-based approach you can begin immediately to protect and rebuild your gut health. After nearly 15 years of clinical practice, here's how to get the most out of this protocol. First, time your binders correctly. Take chlorella and seaweed at least 15 minutes before your largest meal. This allows them to bind microplastics as food enters the digestive tract, like placing a net before exposure occurs. Second, combine plantains with flax seeds. The resistant starch in cooled plantains feeds beneficial gut bacteria, while flaxseed forms a protective gel along the intestinal lining. Together, they create a powerful synergistic effect, nourishing the microbiome while shielding the gut barrier. Third, rotate your prebiotic sources. Microbial diversity depends on fiber diversity. Instead of relying on a single food, alternate options like green bananas, Jerusalem artichokes, and other fiber-rich plants throughout the week to support a more resilient microbiome. Fourth, reduce exposure at the source. Filtering your water helps, but the greater risk often comes from heating food in plastic or using synthetic tea bags. High temperatures can release billions of microplastic particles. Switch to loose-leaf tea and avoid microwaving food in plastic, even if labeled microwave safe. Finally, prioritize consistency over intensity. Gut repair is not a one-time intervention. It requires steady daily support. Small, consistent intake of these foods is far more effective than occasional high doses. Aim to include at least 5 of these foods daily, as this is where measurable improvements in gut integrity and inflammation begin to occur. This is how you turn a good protocol into real, lasting results. Let's address the most common mistakes and how to fix them effectively. First, relying on probiotic supplements instead of prebiotic whole foods. Most probiotic capsules contain limited strains that often don't survive stomach acid or establish long-term benefits. In contrast, prebiotic-rich foods like plantains, flax seeds, garlic, and other fibers nourish the beneficial bacteria already living in your gut. This approach is far more reliable for restoring balance. Supplements can support, but they should never replace whole foods. Second, expecting results too quickly. While the intestinal lining can renew every 3 to 5 days, meaningful changes in the microbiome typically take 4 to 8 weeks. Many people quit too early, just before measurable improvements begin. Sustainable gut repair requires patience and consistency. Third, reducing exposure without addressing existing damage. Switching to glass or stainless steel is a smart step, but it only limits new intake. Microplastics already embedded in the gut need to be actively bound and eliminated. This is where foods like chlorella, seaweed, and flaxseed play a critical role. Prevention and removal must work together. Fourth, assuming bottled water is safer. In reality, plastic bottled water can contain significant amounts of microplastic particles, especially when exposed to heat or sunlight. Regular use may increase your overall intake rather than reduce it. Choosing filtered water stored in glass or stainless steel is a more effective strategy. Avoiding these mistakes ensures that your efforts are not only consistent, but truly effective in protecting and restoring your gut health. Gut damage from microplastics is not permanent, and it's not a life sentence. What I've seen in clinical practice is clear. Patients who restore their gut health aren't relying on luck, genetics, or expensive treatments. They rely on consistency. The body already has built-in systems designed to protect and repair the gut. Mechanisms that bind and remove harmful particles, pathways that rebuild tight junctions, and a microbiome that regulates inflammation and immunity. The issue is not that these systems are broken. It's that they are undernourished and undersupported by modern dietary habits. When you consistently provide the right inputs, targeted whole foods that support detoxification, repair, and microbial balance, these systems begin to function as intended. Over time, inflammation decreases, the gut barrier strengthens, and overall health improves. This is not about quick fixes. It's about steady, daily actions that reactivate what your body already knows how to do. And the most important part is this: you can start today. Let's bring everything together with clarity and precision. First, microplastics are not just passing through your body, they are embedded in your gut lining. They damage tight junctions, disrupt your microbiome, and drive chronic systemic inflammation that can affect multiple organs over time. Second, there are 3 core mechanisms to reverse this damage: binding and removing harmful particles, repairing the intestinal barrier, and restoring the microbiome through targeted prebiotic support. When these systems are activated together, meaningful healing can occur. Third, the protocol is simple but powerful when applied consistently. Chlorella, about 3 grams daily with breakfast, helps bind toxins, never heat it. Wakame seaweed, around 5 grams several times per week, supports particle removal. Cooked and cooled green plantains, about half a serving multiple times weekly, provide resistant starch for microbial health. Freshly ground flax seeds, 2 tablespoons daily, help protect and repair the gut lining. Bone broth or glutamine supports cellular repair, while tart cherries reduce inflammation. Raw garlic, properly prepared, helps rebalance harmful bacteria. To maximize results, take binding foods before meals. Combine plantains with flax seeds for synergistic effects, and rotate your fiber sources to support microbial diversity. Just as important, reduce exposure by avoiding heating food in plastic and switching to safer preparation methods. With consistent daily practice, measurable improvements in gut integrity and inflammation typically begin within 4 to 8 weeks. This is a structured, science-based approach to restoring gut health from the inside out. Your health is not predetermined by past exposure or your environment. It is strongly shaped by your daily choices, especially what you put on your plate and how consistently you support your body. You have far more control than you've been led to believe. Even in the presence of microplastic exposure, the body has the ability to repair, adapt, and restore balance when given the right conditions. Consistent nutrition, targeted foods, and simple lifestyle adjustments can significantly influence how your body responds and recovers over time. If you found this information valuable, take 2 simple steps. First, share this video with someone you care about, because the majority of people are exposed to microplastics daily without realizing the impact. Second, explore more content on the 365 Health Guide channel, where you'll find in-depth, science-based guidance on repairing your gut and improving long-term health. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the 365 Health Guide channel to stay informed with reliable, evidence-based strategies for healthy aging and disease prevention. Wishing you strong health and lasting well-being.